Namaste, Dandavat Pranam. I'm Krishna Keshava Dasi, and here again with Srimati Kanu Priya Devi Dasi, and we are continuing with Hegel's Aesthetics. This is the introduction. This is Hegel speaking now. And section 4, Scientific Ways of Treating Beauty and Art. If we now ask about the kind of scientific treatment of art, we meet here again two opposed ways of treating the subject. Each appears to exclude the other and not to let us reach any true result. On the one hand, we see the science of art only busying itself with actual works of art from the outside, arranging them into a history of art, setting up discussions about existing works or outlining theories which are to yield general considerations for both criticizing and producing works of art. On the other hand, we see science abandoning itself on its own account of reflections on the beautiful and producing only something universal, irrelevant to the work of art in its peculiarity, in short, an abstract philosophy of the beautiful. 1. As for the first mode of treatment, which has the empirical for its starting point, it is the indispensable route for anyone who thinks of becoming a scholar in the field of art. And just as the present day, everyone, even if not a devotee of physics, still likes to be equipped with the most essential physical facts, so it has been more or less necessary for a cultured man to have some acquaintance with art. And the pretension of proving oneself a dilettante and a connoisseur of art is almost universal. A. But if acquaintance of this sort with art is to be recognized as real scholarship, it must be many kinds and of wide range. For the first requirement is a precise acquaintance with the immeasurable realm of individual works of art, ancient and modern, some of which have already perished in reality or belong to distant lands or continents in which the unkindness of fate has withdrawn from our own inspection. Further, every work of art belongs to its own time, its own people, its own environment, and depends on particular historical and other ideas and purposes. Consequently, scholarship in the field of art demands a vast wealth of historical and indeed very detailed facts, since the individual nature of the work of art is related to something individual and necessarily requires detailed knowledge for its understanding and explanation. Finally, scholarship demands here not only, as in other fields, a memory of the facts, but also a keen imagination to retain pictures of artistic forms in all their varied details, and especially to have them present to the mind for comparison with other works of art. B. Within this primarily historical treatment there arise at once different considerations which must not be lost sight of if we are to derive judgments from them. Now these considerations, as in other sciences which have an empirical basis, form, when extracted and assembled, general criteria and propositions, and by still further generalization, theories of the arts. This is not the place to go through the literature of this kind, and it must therefore be enough to cite just a few works in the most general way. Thus, for example, Aristotle's Poetics, its theory of tragedy, is even now of interest, and B, more particularly, Horace's Ars Poetica and Longinus on the Sublime provide among the classics a general idea of the manner in which this theorizing has been handled. The general characteristics abstracted by these authors were supposed to count in particular as prescriptions and rules in accordance with which works of art had to be produced, especially in times when poetry and art had deteriorated. Yet the prescriptions which these art doctors wrote to cure art were even less reliable than those of ordinary doctors for restoring human health. On these theories of art, I will only mention that, although in single instances they contain much that is instructive, still their remarks were drawn from the very restricted range of works of art, which happened to be accounted genuinely beautiful at the time, yet which always constituted only a small extent of the sphere of art. On the other hand, such characteristics are in part very trivial reflections which in their universality make no advance toward establishing the particular, which is principally what is at issue. For example, the Horatian epistele that I have mentioned is full of such reflections and therefore is a book for everybody. But for that reason contains much that is vapid. Omne tulit punctum, etc. So that quote was from Ars Poetica 343. He gets all applause who is mingled the useful with the pleasant, etc. This is just like so many proverbial instructions. Dwell in the land and thou shalt be fed. From Psalms 37:3 from the Bible. So dwell on the land and thou shalt be fed, which are right enough thus generally expressed, but which lack the concrete specifications necessary for action. Another kind of interest consisted not in the express aim of producing genuine works of art directly, but in the intention of developing through such theories a judgment on works of art, in short, of developing taste. As examples, Holmes' Elements of Criticism, the works of Bateau, and Ramler's Einleitung in die schönen Wissenschaften. So it's a little bit about the author who wrote that book. Charles Bateau, 1713 through 1780, was a prolific writer, mostly about classical authors, but Hegel is doubtless referring to Les Beaux-Arts Réduits un même principe, a book from 1746. See also K.W. Ramler, 1725 to 98. His introduction to the Beaux-Arts and his translation part of Bateau's Cours des Belles Lettres, amplified and annotated by himself. Okay. So taste in this sense concerns the arrangements and treatment, the aptness and perfection of what belongs to the external appearance of a work of art. Moreover, they drew into the principles of taste views which were taken from the old psychology and had been derived from empirical observations of mental capacities and activities, passions, and their probable intensification, sequence, etc. But it remains ever the case that every man apprehends works of art or characters, actions, and events according to the measure of his insight and his feelings. And since the development of taste only touched on what was external and meager, and besides took its prescriptions likewise from only a narrow range of works of art and a limited training of the intellect and the feelings, its scope was unsatisfactory and incapable of grasping the inner meaning and truth of art and sharpening the eye for detecting these things. In general, such theories proceed in the same kind of way as the other non-philosophical sciences. What they take as their subject matter is derived from our perception as something really there. But now a further question arises about the character of this perception, since we need closer specifications which are likewise found in our perception, and drawn thence are settled in definitions. But thus we find ourselves at once on uncertain and disputed ground. For at first it might seem that the beautiful was a quite simple idea, but it is soon obvious that several sides may be found in it. And so one author emphasizes one and another author another. Or if the same considerations are kept in view, a dispute arises about the question which side is now to be treated as the essential one. In this regard, it is a part of scientific completeness to cite and criticize the different definitions of the beautiful. We will not do this either in historical completeness in order to get to know all the various subtleties of definitions or for the sake of historical interest. We will only pick out as an example some of the more recent and more interesting ways of looking at beauty, which are aimed more precisely at what is in fact implied in the idea of the beautiful. To this end, we must give pride of place to Goethe's account of the beautiful, which J.H. Meyer has embodied in his Geschichte der Bildenden Kunst in Griechenland, where without naming Hurt, he quotes his view too. Since this is the first of Hegel's many mentions of Goethe in these lectures, it may be as well to recall that Goethe, 1749 to 1832, was Hegel's senior by 11 years and outlived him by a year. Hegel knew him well and often visited him in Weimar. Goethe thought highly of Hegel, but wished that he could express himself more clearly. Others have had a similar wish. Text, this is the second note. The history of the Bildenden arts in Greece. Bosanquet tentatively suggests formative as a translation of Bildenden, but all the arts are formative in one way or another. Hegel refers often to the Bildenden arts, and he means by them architecture, sculpture, and painting, as distinct from music and poetry. These three arts are collectively referred to in English as the visual arts, and I have therefore used this word to render Bildenden. Panofsky, Panofsky, meaning in the visual arts, does not mention Hegel, but the book contains a good deal of material which illuminates Hegel's discussion of these arts. A.L. Hirt, one of the greatest genuine connoisseurs in our time, wrote an essay on the beauty of art in Die Huren, which is a periodical conducted by Schiller, who is often mentioned below in part 3. He was a professor of archaeology in Berlin, and Hegel was friendly with him. So one of the greatest genuine connoisseurs in our time wrote an essay on the beauty of art, Die Huren, in 1797, in which, after writing about the beautiful and the different arts, he sums up in conclusion that the basis for a just criticism of beauty in art and for the formation of taste is the concept of the characteristic, i.e., he lays it down that the beautiful is the perfect, which is or can be an object of eye, ear, or imagination. He then further defines the perfect as what corresponds with its aim, what nature or art intended to produce in the formation of the object within its genus and species. It follows then that in order to form our judgment of beauty, we must direct our observations so far as possible to the individual marks which constitute the essence of the thing, Einwesen, since it is just these marks which constitute its characteristic. By character, as a law of art, Hurt understands that specific individuality whereby forms, movement, and gesture, mind and expression, local color, light and shade, chiaroscuro, and bearing are distinguished, and indeed as the previously envisaged objects demand. This formulation is already more significant than other definitions, for if we go on to ask what the characteristic is, we see at once that it involves a content, as for example, a specific feeling, situation, occurrence, action, individual, and the mode and manner in which this content is presented. Please give me one moment, Edith.
Sure. You're okay?
It is on this manner of presentation that the artistic law of a characteristic depends, since it demands that everything particular in the mode of expression shall serve towards the specific designation of its content and be a link in the expression of that content. The abstract category of the characteristic thus refers to the degree of appropriateness with which the particular detail of the artistic form sets in relief the content it is meant to present. If we wish to explain this if we wish to explain this conception in a quite popular way, the following is the limitation which it involves. In a dramatic work, for example, an action constitutes the content. The drama is to display how this action happens. Now people do all sorts of things. They join and talk, eat occasionally, sleep, put on their clothes, say this and that, and so on. But whatever of all this does not stand immediately in relation to that specific action, which is the content proper, should be excluded, so that in that content nothing remains without significance. In the same way, in a picture which seizes on only one phase of that action, there could be included such are the wide ramifications of the external world, a mass of circumstances, persons, situations, and other incidents which have no relation to the specific action in that phase and contribute nothing to its distinctive character. But according to the principle of the characteristic, nothing is to enter the work of art except what belongs to the appearance and essentially to the expression of this content alone. Nothing is to be adios or superfluous. This is a very important principle which may be justified in certain respects. Yet Meyer, in the book mentioned above, thinks that this view has been superseded without trace, and as he maintains, to the benefit of art, on the ground that this idea would probably have led to something like a caricature. This judgment immediately implies the perversity of supposing that such a definition of the beautiful would have to do with leading to something. The philosophy of art has no concern with prescriptions for artists. On the contrary, it has to determine what the beautiful is as such and how it has displayed itself in reality in works of art, without wishing to provide rules for their production. Now, apart from this, in respect to this criticism, it is of course true that Hertz's definition does cover caricature and the like too. For after all, what is caricatured may be a characteristic. Only one must say at once on the other side that in caricature the specific character is exaggerated and is, as it were, superfluity of the characteristic. But the superfluity is no longer what is strictly required for the characteristic, but a troublesome repetition whereby the characteristic itself may be made unnatural. Moreover, caricature and the like may also be the characterizing of the ugly, which is certainly a distortion. Ugliness, for its part, is closely related to the subject matter, so that it may be said that the principle of the characteristic involves as a fundamental feature on acceptance of the ugly and its presentation, on what is to be characterized in the beauty of art and what is not, on the content of the beautiful. Hertz's definition, of course, gives us no more precise information. In this respect, he provides only a purely formal prescription, which yet contains something true, even if in an abstract way. Maybe that's a good place to stop for today.
Mm.
So we'll continue from here next time.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's interesting what Hertz saying. being descriptive, I guess, about art and the definitions of art and how one makes art, what it's for. Do you have any reflections on that at all?
Well, I think he's he's transitioning now to the next purpose of the introduction, which is trying to define or at least bring to light what beauty is in general. And then he started addressing some historical perspectives. So the first one was this author whose name was Hurt. And it seems that the main idea I could take away from that was how a piece of art shouldn't include anything that isn't specifically serving the purpose of what that piece of art is meant to communicate. And then he started talking a little bit about caricatures, how the caricature overemphasizes a certain feature of whatever is trying to be communicated. But I think this is
yeah,
he's
I
going to
feel like
build on this.
I feel like he's talking about when an artist maybe exaggerates the truth slightly, or maybe, you know, increases a color of something. Like you can do that as an artist. You can. That's what I was feeling, like the character of something doesn't, you know, you're. So if something's blue, for instance, you can make it bluer. You know, or if something, like if you're doing like with someone like Mondigliani, who's did portraits of people, they weren't, you know, they were exaggerated. The necks were exaggerated, the eyes were over exaggerated. So it's like, I feel like they're accentuating the character of something out. Because where he's talking here about, where Hertz saying, you know, that he lays down the law that the beautiful is the perfect, which is or can be an object of eye, ear, or imagination. Yeah, and when it's saying then it corresponds with the aim and the nature of the art intended to produce in the formation. And then where he's talking then about the character. So I think it's, you know, how sometimes someone perceives something and how they decide to accentuate that beauty. So you're looking at something and maybe you're drawing out, accentuating out something more than is that we see in reality. I could be wrong. So I feel that he's saying.
Yeah, I mean that sounds like in the last section that we read where he said art has more freedom than nature, because you can express that. If someone is seeing something in a certain way, then they can paint it as they see it, or whatever their medium is, express it in a way that's beyond.
I think beyond what they see, in a sense, so that it's like, again, I suppose it's to do with character and nature also, like within the person, because, you know, what you're connecting with more, you know, one artist might connect more with something that they're perceiving, so therefore they accentuate that, or they highlight that more, and they draw that out from nature more, you know, bring it to the forefront or something. Where it says the expression shall serve towards the specific designation of its content. I don't know if we've read that bit. Yeah. Because we're always talking about the abstract character of the character, the abstract category of the characteristic. So it then becomes slightly abstract. So the more you pull something up, accentuate something, maybe more you pull something out, the more abstract it can become to a viewer, even though it's coming from something.
the thought I just had from what you read there was also, like just for like a simple example, if somebody was trying to like paint the idea that the eyes are the window to the soul, then you would think that somehow the artist would make the eyes very prominent, and that would be the center piece of the painting, kind of. So then, if that was the purpose of the painting, and then in addition to the very detailed and accentuated eyes, they just had some like really big ears on the person too, then that's like completely takes away and distracts from the main point of it. So in that way, that becomes more abstract because the concrete idea which is trying to be communicated kind of loses its prominence.
Yes. Yeah. It's emphasizing something. So I suppose if they're trying to communicate something visually, then they're emphasizing something so it comes forward.
Yeah.
And is not competing with something else that's irrelevant. It doesn't serve any purpose. In their idea, in their aim. Yeah.
Yeah. So in some way, when we're trying to make devotional art, then of course, then you can think like rejecting what is unfavorable to devotion. Like, instead of getting carried away with other things in the piece of art, which are taking away from whatever the devotional intention is, and okay, we're rejecting that which is unfavorable to devotion. We're focusing only on the aspect of this piece of art that's, serving Guru or communicating the idea that Guru has presented to us, something like that.
Yes. So even if when we talk about, like you mentioned, I was trying to jot some things down earlier today, some ideas in regards to what we spoke about before, with the idea of, like you said about the water and the material ocean, and how the people might be in the water, and how someone's being saved, and how that might look like, and how you might communicate that, what's in the background and what's in the foreground, and who's where, even just positioning people and what way they're facing is all going to mean something. It's all going to reflect something. You got to communicate something visually. So, or even the exploitation, renunciation, and dedication, what might you put in those images? What format's it going to be? Even what medium is it going to be? How's that best going to communicate what you're trying to say? And there's lots of information, there's lots of sort of hidden information you can put in there that you have to really read into. Maybe some knowledge or some understanding might need to be there to be able to read it or understand it even. But the artist's purpose is to serve Guru, Vaishnav in creating art that has some service potential. So it's in that way, rather than just sort of doing it as a form of sense enjoyment. I like the colors in the sunset, and this is a beautiful landscape, which you can still see as a form of God's creation. But what's your point? What's the point of the artist then? Is it's just then sense enjoyment? I have some ability, and I'm just creating something for the sake of creating something beautiful, which already exists. But if it has an added purpose to serve the Lord, to serve in the sense of, awakening, spreading some thought, someone to think about something else, and I suppose that's what devotion is. What we should be doing, what should be serving. So it's interesting. Everyone has a different idea about these things, but yes, interesting to see where this takes us then, what the next bit is it interesting about the ugly and talking about the characterizing of the ugly, acceptance of the ugly and in its presentation. Some funny things in here. Interesting.
So then Next week, will you also be doing this, manning the art?
No,
So it'll be later again, or?
it finishes actually on Saturday evening, so I'll try and make Madhava Parimara's class, but we it finishes at 5 and then have to take it all down. And then I have to drive back here and pack up my things and drive back to London. And then next week I'm in Eastbourne actually. I'm on a job. I'm on location on a job for a week. So I should still be able to do it. I have to just work out the Wi-Fi. So it should be fine.
Yeah, just let me know how it goes.
Yeah, I will do. Keep you updated. So and so a few people have bought some prints, which is nice. So it's I think it's been worth it this week. It's been nice to sort of, have some really interesting conversations with some other Christian ladies and other people that have come in and just asking questions, and other people that really like even just some Indian art. And it's that wanting to inquire more about it. What does it mean? And so it's been interesting. Had some good discussions. So
Do
I
you
hope.
have any books from the mutt, Sridhar Maharaj?
No, no, I don't. I've only some of my own ones. I've got the leaflets, but it's just in the temple we don't have many. And I didn't manage to get up there to buy a few. So I just online there's that uh Krishna.com, the one that where they sell Prabhupada's original books. So I just
Mm.
got a starter pack from there. And I thought anyway, it's quite nice to have some of Prabhupada's beginning books, especially when you're going to places where, they're real new sort of introduction books. So some of the really simple, like what I would call introductory books are really nice to have there. But yeah, I'd like to try and buy some more and have a few more selection. This is my sort of first one really with the bookstore.
Mm.
So yeah, I'm going to try and buy some more when I go up to the temple, get a few other ones.
Mahayogi Maharaj doesn't carry any like a little bit like a bulk supply or anything? Mm.
No, I'll have to go to West London Temple, get some. And I don't know what they have. They don't have, I mean, they've run out all of Achari Maharaj's books, I know that. But yeah, they have some other ones. I think they must have quite a few other ones, but I didn't want to put my ones on there because I know other, um
Yeah, your personal
so
copies.
a lot of people are asking what would you recommend for a first one, a real introduction into the conception of Krishna consciousness. So I think some of the real, when Prabhupada did those small books like King of Knowledge, Perfect Questions, Perfect Answers, um, um, Life Comes from Life, some of the smaller introductions.
Don't give them life comes from life.
They were no,
That gives such a bad impression of the scientific Sankirtan.
does it?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Uh,
Because people who have no exposure to like what is actually going on with that, they get carried away with reading about kicking on the scientist's face, and they don't know like any context, or that Prabhupada was talking intimately to like some disciples in a way that was like trying to emphasize the importance of the service to them,
mhm.
not that the public should hear,
General
that
public, yeah.
yeah, that's not such a good idea for them to think that's what the intention of scientific preaching is, to kick on the face of scientists to get spiritual progress.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a scientific book for scientific people.
Well, I'm saying like even like that I think they even tried to reprint that book recently because just the whole idea of people reading about kicking on the face, and they get carried away. They get very carried away. Because I don't know, they like the drama or something. But Prabhupada was saying that just to his like intimate disciples actually, and I heard that that was originally that book was transcribed in German, and then they tried to make an English version of it. So it's some of the trend. There's like a whole bunch of stuff with that. And I don't ever hear Sripad Puri Maharaj emphasizing to read that book. So
Maybe I won't. I've not read it myself, and I've not, it's just one of the original ones that came. So rather than the reprints that they're doing in ISKCON, I'd rather get Prabhupada's original ones. And that's just the pack that they sent. But I know a lot of the smaller books are quite good for beginners.
There's one that's nice, like if you want to give people something from like the scientific side from this kind is Swoop Damodar Maharaj's his thesis. I mean, his PhD thesis, they made it into a book called The Science of Krishna Consciousness, I think. And it's
Okay.
also like an introductory book. I know some devotees from here who that's what got them interested in Krishna consciousness.
Because some of Sridhar Maharaj's books even are quite hard, I think quite different level, it's quite hard concept for people. And I think it's hard to know, I suppose it's one of those things, you can't judge on anyone, might come in and like even there, you've just had a few people that were, knew a little bit about Krishna consciousness, someone that came from Wales and been introduced there and was already reading the Gita, but was fine struggling and, they just wanted a print. But, it's interesting who comes through the door and you're not expecting. So you can't judge, I suppose, who might know, who might understand something, who might not understand something.
I think that as far as like beginning books from the mutt, I think Srila Govinda Maharaj told Home Comfort, that little blue one from Sridhar Maharaj.
Yeah.
And then his what is it? You have the small yellow one. Is it like Inner Guidance or something?
There's an original source one as well.
Original source, that's the one. Yeah.
That's really good. I've got those actually. I could maybe even try and get those reprinted myself somehow because they're only small. Because they don't have those sorts of things, you see. It's the thing, we don't have the books and it's not so accessible. And I think, even to have some of the really, higher books is hard to give away. Not give away, but expect people to connect with. But you never know. Yeah, some of those small ones, I should try and maybe get those reprinted myself if I try and have some more of these things. Yeah.
Were you the one who organized it, the whole event?
Well, there's one other old gentleman that when I had the gallery, he came in and asked to do the he'd like to do this, and so a few of us, we found a few other people that got together. So I'd say Arthur, who's a Baha'i, he instigated it, and then we sort of got together and did it as a group. So before we had it at the gallery, and this time we just had it in a very old church in Canterbury. But I'd like to try maybe for next year or the year after, maybe try and find somewhere nice as well and try and organise it a bit better. So yeah, that's my plan. See how it goes. We've had a nice response, nice people coming in. So I should take the Life Come from Life book away. This isn't it. What's this one, Krishna? The link you sent me.
That is the scientific basis of Krishna consciousness by Swoop Damodar Maharaj. That's I heard it's a good introduction. I haven't read it myself, but I just also found one of Sridhar Maharaj's books on Amazon. I don't know if they have it in UK also. Oh, they have.
Oh, Shri Guruni's Grace. Yeah, we have this, but again, it's subjective. Some of these books are like quite high to read. They're not. They're quite high books in a sense. Search for Krishna.
It's all about what people are attracted to. We don't actually know what they're looking for,
Yeah, I know. So I'm saying you can't. I suppose in one way you can't judge because you don't know where that person's at in a sense. But I think, generally in sort of these country places and they're sort of basic Christian, you got to think a lot of them are basic Christian. To just get sort of simple understanding first.
Okay. The search for Sri Krishna from Sri Ram Maharaj and the religion of the heart from Srila Govinda Maharaj. I know those are also nice introductory ones that are a little bigger.
Yeah, I've given those to a few people before that I know, and they didn't get it. They weren't connecting. Like, still quite the way they speak is slightly different. It's yeah, they are more simpler books. But yeah, could still happen. That's a good one, actually.
I mean, the biggest takeaway for people, like if they were to get anything, the biggest takeaway is, okay, now I need to go inquire from a sadhu. Like that's the only thing they can actually take away. Otherwise, if
Yeah,
they think they learned something, they become self-realized from reading the book. That's nonsense. The
yeah,
only thing they can
exactly.
do is inquire more. Oh, this sounds very nice. I don't understand it, but it sounds like something I would want to inquire more about. Let me
Sure.
try to inquire from somebody who knows something about it. That's
Yeah, yeah,
that's
that's
the only
really
thing.
what you want to do. So,
Yeah.
so if I'm down here a bit more, it'd be nice to sort of invite people to a group or something and give that option also. And I do say, we do groups and I have the temple leaflets and things. But yeah, you kind of have to let people, I suppose it's their journey, isn't it? I'm sure that at some point, if they are wanting to inquire, they'll come across, they'll inquire and find somewhere or find something. So we're all just a little piece of the puzzle. But yeah. Should get some more of those books. I have to pop up to the temple at some point and see if I can get some more books. But I won't probably do it for a while now anyway. But it was just a nice opportunity and it was a bit impromptu with the books. I thought,
Yeah.
I was getting some of the library, some of the just basic ones for my own library, and I thought, I'll just get the. They had a starter pack. I thought, I'll get that.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Any opportunity for preaching is very ecstatic experience, I think.
Yes, interesting. Really interesting. Two old Christian ladies are very sweet, and they say we go to church. One lady's like, I go to church every Sunday, but I don't believe everything that the pastor says to me. I can't remember what she called herself. But yeah, it's interesting. It's good. It's been nice.
So you were saying you have to make some prasad for the deities there?
Yes, now I have to cook for them. They'll be hungry. And I also managed to do some little bit of prasad distribution. I made some cake and gave out. So that was something. Just a little, yeah. Yeah, now I'm going to go and cook for them and then put them to rest. And but thank you, Prabhu. It was nice reading. We're getting into the book. We're getting into the book.
Jai Shripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Srila Prabhupada, Srila Guru Maharaj, Srila Gurudev, Srila Acharya Dev, Srila Shanta Maharaj Ki Jai.
Right.
Jai Shnavadvip Dham, Shringapuri Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Baladev Jagannath Subhadra Ju Ki Jai. Jai Ganga Mai Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Giri Govardhan Gupta Govardhan Dham Ki Jai. Sham Kund Radha Kund Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Jai Rupanuga Guru Varga Ki Jai. Jai Sama Bhakti Veda Vrinda Ki Jai. Harinam Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai. Scientific Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai. Jai Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Mat. Jai Princeton Bhakti Vedantic Institute Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Pramanandi Hari 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 Bol. Jai Shrimati Kanu Priya Didi Ki Jai.
Jai Krishna Keshava Das Prabhu Ki Jai.
Dhanavad Pranam Didi.
Dhanavad.